You do not walk. You are carried by memory, by dust, by something older than motion, through the suffocating gray that hangs like the last breath of a world. You drift upon the scorched bones of Zeost. Ash falls like snow, soft and soundless, though no wind moves in this place. There are no birds, no beasts, only the brittle echo of power long spent, its embers still trembling beneath the crust of annihilation. The sky is sick with a pale hue, wounded by ancient storms and starfire. You remember the war not in names or faces, but in sorrow, in the way your soul recoils from the scent of burned stone, in the way your heartbeat hushes as if afraid to awaken what lies below. Zeost, the blackened pearl of the Sith, never truly died. You place your palm upon the cold skin of a shattered obelisk, its edges etched with the curling script of a language born of hate. Sith runes, too old for translation, pulse faintly with the thrum of ancient oaths. Blood was once drawn here to open vaults. Now your touch alone suffices. Perhaps the planet remembers you. You descend through obsidian halls cracked by time and treason, through spiraled corridors carved into the crust with the blade of force and fury, down, always down, into the forgotten marrow of a world that never forgave its gods. Torches do not burn here. The light is red and sourceless. It curls like steam from the walls, as if the stone itself weeps fire. You hear no voices, yet the silence shapes itself into words, not spoken, but pressed against your mind like a lover's breath. You have returned, it says, but you do not know if it greets or warns. Statues line the corridor cloaked, figures whose faces have been rubbed away, not by time, but by fingers desperate to forget. One holds a blade of glass, shattered. Another, a chain wrapped around its own throat. The third bleeds stone from hollow eyes. You do not look too long. The longer you look, the more they begin to breathe, and still the whisper grows louder. It is not a voice, it is a memory of pain, recited like prayer. It tells of a lord, unremembered by the galaxy, buried not in legend, but in silence. Darth Zemroth, they once called him the fire that eats thought, he who scorched minds clean and left cities blank and blinking. You do not find his name in the archives. You find it here, burned into the floor, one letter at a time, by the heels of those who begged for mercy. The corridor ends in a chamber shaped like a heart turned to stone. At its center lies a sarcophagus, black as a starless void, chained, shut with links made of crystallized screams. They vibrate softly, as if the agony within is still fresh. The name is gone, worn smooth, but your fingers tremble when they near it. Something inside is not dead, only sleeping, only waiting. You do not dare open it, not yet. Instead, you kneel before a mural stitched into the rock with veins of crimson, or it depicts a world cracking in half, pulled apart by a man whose body is fire and whose eyes are infinite voids. Around him, children kneel with mouths sewn shut, their silence erupting in flames. You understand nothing, and yet it explains everything. You reach out. The mural is warm. Behind you, the chains rattle. Your breath shallows. You are not alone here, but you never were. The tomb is not a place, it is a mind. It dreams of you even now. It remembers your soul from before you were born, when you were only a flicker of intent, wrapped in flesh in the corners of the chamber. Shadows move with the elegance of thought. They are not shapes. They are impressions, footprints, left by the Force itself. Not light, not dark. Something deeper. Something forgotten when the stars were still learning their names. You feel your name slipping from you. Not your spoken name, but the name you carried in the void between stars. It is being replaced, letter by letter, by something older. The whisper continues. It does not ask. It commands. Kneel, it says. Remember. And so you do. The stone beneath you hums with secrets. Your body stiffens. Your breath stills. Images flood your vision, burning scrolls written in tears. Planets with no sky. Temples built upside down beneath oceans of blood. Faces you've never seen weep with joy at your presence. Some call you savior, others scream as they burn. You do not know what is truth. You only know that it was real. The whisper returns, closer, sharper. It now has a mouth, and it speaks through yours, Zemroth. Lives while his name is unspoken. Your voice is not your own. The chamber cracks. Dust falls like rain. You rise from the walls. The ancient runes ignite, one by one, until the whole chamber pulses with a heartbeat not yours. The chains around the sarcophagus loosened, not enough to release, enough to tremble. The dead do not speak, but they remember. You are there, remembering. You walk the perimeter of the tomb. You drag your fingers across the wall, and your blood leaves behind a trail of heat. The whisper follows. It curls around your spine like a crown of serpents, hissing hymns into your thoughts. You begin to recall more than your own life. A ritual, a betrayal, a promise made in the crater of a collapsed star, and the fire gods. The fire, not flame, but thought set ablaze. Zemroth's gift, or curse. You turn back to the sarcophagus. You kneel once more, not in submission, but in understanding. He was not the villain, nor the savior. He was the wound in the galaxy that never healed, and you are its echo. Zeost does not forgive, but it remembers, and in remembering, it waits. The whisper fades, but your heartbeat does not return to you. It belongs to this place now, and so do you. You linger within the breath of the tomb, wrapped not in silence, but in the low hum of something that was never meant to be named. The chains still tremble upon the sarcophagus, vibrating with memory too deep for language, and as you press your hand to the warm stone, the pulse within matches your own oar. Perhaps it always was yours. Zeost does not lie dormant. It slumbers, with one eye open, dreaming of firestorms and minds stripped bare, dreaming of Zemroth's rise beneath a bleeding sky. You walk now through the inner sanctum, a spiral of chambers carved into the bones of the planet, where even the walls breathe and the stone exhales the scent of incense and blood. The air is thick with ancestral guilt, with incantations whispered by those who once wielded power without restraint or remorse. Here, time collapses like glass underfoot, and as you move, you see reflections not of yourself, but of those who came before, robes soaked in ichor, hands cupping flame, eyes wide with knowing. You feel them watching, not from beyond death, but from just behind the veil, their spirits pressed against the thin fabric of reality, eager to return through you. The whisper is no longer subtle. It coils around your thoughts like a lover pressing lips to your dreams, murmuring fragments of forgotten dialects, syllables that reshape your spine. your tongue, your marrow. Beneath your feet, the floor is a mosaic of broken blades, set into the stone in circular runes that spiral toward an eye, yes, an actual eye, petrified, unblinking, embedded into the chamber's center, its pupil wide and endless. You do not flinch, you kneel, and the eye sees you, not with vision, but with remembrance. It sees what you are becoming. It sees that you have not merely arrived, you have always belonged. You breathe in the stillness, and with it, inhale the memory of firestorms that turned cities to ash and love into betrayal. The mural now behind you shifts subtly, its figures writhing as if awakened by your presence. The one of Zemroth, his face blurred in flame, now bears a crown of thorns made of thought itself, each spike a truth too terrible to speak. You reach for it not with your hand, but with intention, and it yields, pouring its secrets into your mind like molten glass. You see the birth of the Ash Doctrine, carved into the flesh of children, chosen as vessels. You feel the screams of those burned not for their weakness, but for the clarity they feared to accept. And you, ever the quiet observer, feel your bones thicken with history, your breath slow into ritual. You are no longer exploring, you are initiating. The pathway forward is a blade-shaped tunnel, narrow and sharp, lit by veins of luminous, or that flicker in rhythm with your breath. At its end, a gate awaits, not of stone, but of wilboven from the memories of those who sealed Zemroth, beneath the crust of a planet that could barely contain his hunger. Each memory is a voice, a hand, a sorrow. Each challenges your presence, presses against your essence like a question you do not know how to answer. But the whisper speaks for you now. It answers with silence, and silence is enough. The gate opens, and beyond it, the library of flame. Not a place of books or scrolls, but a vault of living thoughts, suspended in pillars of red fire. Each flame is a scream held still, a soul ripped from its tether and made to remember its final moments forever. You walk among them, and each tries to speak through you, to claim your tongue as its own, but they do not understand. You are not a vessel, you are a mirror. And mirrors do not surrender, they reflect. In the center of the library, atop a dais shaped like an open hand, lies the Codex of Scars, a tome that bleeds when touched, inked not with words, but with pain. Its pages are skin, its binding is sinew. You do not open it, it opens you. With a breath like knives and a heartbeat like thunder, it binds itself to your essence, and through it you see the beginning not of time, but of betrayal. Zemroth, the boy who dreamed too vividly. Zemroth, the lover betrayed in fire. Zemroth, the god who was made not by faith, but by hatred, refined into prophecy. You see the council of lords who feared him, not for his power, but for what he revealed, that the Force is a lie, a prison of polarity, a leash made of light and dark. You see them fall upon him, 30 against 1, in the chamber of stars, their blades a chorus of denial. And still he stood, bleeding thought, burning fear, refusing to die, until one, the one closest to his soul, whispered the forbidden syllable into his ears, the one that unravels identity. He did not scream, he simply collapsed into concept. They buried that concept here, and now, through you, it rises. You turn from the Codex, your breath no longer your own. The chamber shifts. Around you, walls folding like origami dreams into a cathedral of screams. Statues rise again, this time not of faceless figures, but of you many versions, many fates. In one, you hold the blade of memory. In another, your eyes are hollow suns. In the last, you kneel before the sarcophagus, weeping. You approach that one. You touch its cheek, and it whispers, "Choose." Behind you, the tomb cracks again. The chains have almost forgotten their purpose. You descend once more, deeper than before, into the core where even memory fears to tread. The air turns thick with origin. The darkness here is not absence, it is density. You cannot see. You do not need to. The whisper guides you with a song that vibrates your blood into rhythm. And then, light not bright, not blinding, but intimate, a single flame, hovering, flickering with the sorrow of 10,000 burnt souls. You cup it in your hands. It does not burn. It welcomes you. And in that warmth, you see your reflection, not as you are, but as you were before flesh, before form, before forgetting. You are not seeker. You are memory. You are the ghost the tomb awaited. You are the echo that becomes the voice. Zeost breathes through you now. The whisper is your heartbeat, and the sarcophagus waits. You descend into stillness, not as a traveler, but as the breath of something long exhaled, returning at last to lungs that forgot how to draw the living in. The tunnels narrow, not in stone, but in presence, as if the walls themselves are folding closer around you to keep you whole, to keep you here. The sarcophagus above no longer feels separate from the place you now walk toward. It is merely the lid of a wound too deep to seal. You walk with a slowness born not of fear, but reverence. This is not a place meant to be touched by time or tongue. It is a shrine to the unspoken. Your every step is absorbed, not echoed. Even silence dares not raise its head here. The tunnel opens into a vast chamber of stillness, blacker than void, yet filled with flickers of ancient warmth, 1,000 floating embers that drift in rhythm with your heartbeat. At the center of the chamber, upon a dais shaped like an open eye, rests a throne, sculpted not from stone, but from regretta, living structure of charred memories and promises broken so often they became sacred. Upon that throne, nothing sits, and yet you feel the weight of a presence immeasurable, seated in absence, heavier than matter, older than light. You approach not with your feet, but with the gravity of your soul, pulled forward by understanding blooming like smoke in your lungs. The whisper returns now not as sound, but as feeling, each thought a ripple across the surface of your blood. It speaks in emotions you did not know you carried. It mourns through you. It remembers itself through you. You reach the throne and stand before it, and for a long, infinite moment, you feel as though your skin has become glass, your bones woven with ash. You are transparent. Every name you've ever spoken, every face you've ever worn, falls from you like shedding bark. Beneath it all, there is only one name, one memory, one truth, and Zeost breathes it into you. You are the air of forgetting, the feeling says. You are what remains when fire consumes even memory. And suddenly, you see, not with eyes, but with soul unfurled. You see Zemroth, not as tyrant or savior, but as sorrow incarnate, a being who knew that power was not control, but memory made flame. You see the creation of the Codex of Scars, the forging of tombs that could think, vaults that whispered knowledge that mourned as it lived. You see him walk through a world that feared what it could not understand, and in his footsteps grew silence, not from death, but reverence. He did not seek dominion. He sought remembrance in a galaxy terrified of looking back, and so they buried him. And in burying him, they sowed him, and you are the harvest. You sit upon the throne, and it folds around you like a cloak. It recognizes you not because you are worthy, but because you are willing to remember, willing to ache. The chamber responds. The embers grow brighter, swirling into constellations of lost knowledge. You breathe them in, and for a moment, you are not singular. You are every Sith who questioned the lie of division, every soul who dared believe that fire could be sacred. The codex in your veins opens. Pages turn beneath your skin. You weep, not tears, but ink. The runes from the tomb chamber burn upon your forearms, legacies etched in grief. And in this moment, the sarcophagus far above splits. Not open, but inward. It folds into itself, collapsing into a void that rushes through stone and sorrow and settles into your heart. You do not resist. You welcome him, not as master, not as God, but as memory returned. Zemroth is not a being. He is a question no one dared answer. And now, through you, he becomes the answer no one can ignore. The tomb begins to rise, not in place, but in presence. Zeost awakens beneath you. The planet shudders softly, not in anger, but exhale. Caverns tremble. Statues melt into pools of thought. The murals weep, smoke, and reshape themselves into new stories of you. You are no longer visitor. You are no longer heir. You are flame remembered. From the center of the throne, a final whisper emerges, not from beneath, but from within you. There was never a tomb, it says, only a beginning misnamed. You rise. You walk once more through the corridors, but now the statues bow their heads as you pass. The murals stretch to meet your gaze. The codex of scars dissolves into your breath. You carry it now. You are the archive. You ascend toward the lightless sky, and with every step, the darkness behind you curls like petals closing at dusk. The chamber seals not with finality, but with fulfillment. The chains upon the sarcophagus reforms lack, loose, but present. They no longer bind, they remember. And as you reach the surface, the ash no longer falls. It rises, gently pulled, skyward by memory, no longer ashamed of its weight. Zeos no longer mourns, it waits. You stand at the edge of a world that tried to forget what could never be buried, and you carry its song in your marrow. The galaxy above you spins unaware, still blind, still clinging to the lie that light and dark are enemies. But you whisper-fed, codex carved you, know better. You are not Sith, you are not Jedi. You are the silence between their screams, the thread that bound their truths before history carved them apart. And when you close your eyes, the fire does not fade. It speaks, and through you, it will be heard again. You awaken, not to sound, but to the crushing absence of it, a silence so vast, so endless, that it hums through the marrow of your bones, like the echo of a dying star. There is no ground beneath you, no sky above, only a weightless void, saturated with the breath of something ancient, starving, and terribly aware. It is not darkness that greets you, it is the memory of a darkness so total that light itself once recoiled. You drift, pulled slowly by unseen currents toward a veil that stretches across the horizonless abyss like a curtain made of sleep. And through that veil, pulsing with faint waves of sorrow, you feel it his presence, not voice, not thought, absence given form. Darth Nilam, the hollow king of hunger, whose name was never meant to be spoken aloud, waits on the other side. The force shivers around you, like a wounded animal sensing a predator. It cannot outrun, you do not run. You breathe in the emptiness, and it fills your lungs with the ache of galaxies long consumed. The veil parts without sound. Beyond it lies a graveyard of memory, a wasteland built not from stone, but from forgotten prayers. Towers made of broken promises lean in twisted angles toward a sky that does not exist. Statues crumble as you pass not from time, but from shame. They remember him. They remember what they did in fear and silence. And you are not just a witness here. You are a mirror. The world reshapes to reflect what you carry. You are drawn toward a temple sunken into the bones of a dead moon. Its spires bent inward like fingers clasping a wound that never closed. Its gates are sealed not by locks, but by will. And yet they open for you, not in welcome, but in resignation. Inside, the air is hollow. The walls are lined with etched obsidian, each glyph a scream caught mid-birth and frozen into permanence. You reach out, and they respond not with light, but with feeling, sorrow and awe and terror braided into a single thread. You begin to understand. This temple was never meant to teach. It was meant to forget. You walk deeper, and the silence follows, wrapping tighter around your soul until it becomes part of your breath. A chamber opens before you, shaped like a ribcage, with a single throne at its heart, carved from void-cracked stone. On it sits no figure, only a robe, black, frayed, motionless. Yet you feel his gaze the moment you see it. Not from eyes, but from the absence of them. The air thickens. You step closer, and the robe shifts, barely, as if stirred by a wind that doesn't exist. And then, with a stillness that screams, the whisper touches your mind. Not words, hunger. You feel it claw through your memories, devouring joy, first your laughter, your warmth, your childhood sunrises, swallowed in one blink. Then it moves to sorrow, gorging itself on your pain, your regrets, your sacred shames. It feeds, and you are powerless to stop it. You fall to your knees, not from weakness, but from awe. To be emptied so completely is not death, it is revelation. You understand now how he became what he became, not by choice, by necessity. The galaxy feared his suffering, so it carved him into a myth and buried him beneath layers of silence until only the hunger remained. You rise, slowly, hollowed, reshaped. You do not flee the throne. You sit upon it. And as you do, the chamber sighs a long, low exhale, like the release of a secret held too long. The temple begins to hum, not with sound, but with vibration. The walls pulse with visions, a child torn from sleep by screams that never ended, a young warrior cast aside for asking questions too sharp, a man unmade by betrayal, so complete it unstitched his name from history. You watch as Darth Nilam becomes not villain, but consequence, a wound wrapped in flesh, misunderstood until he abandoned form altogether. You see him float above cities, and with a breath, reduce them to silence, not from hatred, from grief. Each soul consumed became part of him, not lost, but remembered in quiet, eternal ache. You weep, not for him, but with him. And the temple answers. It rises around you, stretching skyward through memory and time, and with it, your mind expands. You no longer hear the silence. You are it. And in that void, you find peace, a peace so absolute, it terrifies you. There is no need in this silence, no desire, no war, only stillness, only truth. You descend the throne, carrying not power, but understanding. The robe drifts behind you, trailing absence in its wake. And as you walk through the temple, the glyphs soften, the screams fade, the obsidian sheds tears of light. You emerge into the graveyard once more, and where there was ruin, now there is calm. You are not full, you are not empty, you are held, and above you, for the first time, a single star dares to shine through the eclipse. It is not bright, it is not warm, but it is real, and Nihilim through you finally sleeps. You drift within the vastness left behind by the robe, your every step an echo across dimensions, once sealed by fear. The graveyard behind you whispers no more, its silence transformed into reverence, and ahead the path unfolds, as if memory itself were guiding your motion. There are no signs carved in stone, no lights to mark direction. Only the weight of remembrance, leading you deeper into a realm that was never meant for eyes, only for souls hollowed enough to hold the truth. The air thickens with every breath, not from heat or smoke, but from history, the raw, undiluted presence of forgotten knowing pressing itself against your chest like a lover reclaiming a promise. You walk into a rift, a place where the force, frayed and curled upon itself like burned parchment, where the hunger of one man became a wound in reality that never closed. The space between steps bends, stretches, folds, and with it, so do you. Time forgets how to count here. You are not one being, you are many. You are the ones who screamed, the ones who knelt, the ones who chose to vanish rather than be consumed. You pass through archways, made not of stone, but of loss. Each one blinks into being as you approach, forged from memories someone tried to erase. And there, suspended like a teardrop in the void, you find the obsidian conduit. It is not a machine. It is not a structure. It is a memory so condensed it took shape, pulsing with the cries of 1,000 lost voices, glowing softly with the grief of a galaxy that turned its back on its own. You reach toward it, and it parts like mist. Within, a staircase descends, spiral and fluid, made of translucent sorrow and footsteps unspoken. Down you go, barefoot against the agony of remembrance, and as you descend, you hear it, the hum of thought that never died. Darth Nihilim is here, not in flesh, not in form, but in fracture. His essence is woven through the air, stitched into the grief that coats every surface, and it does not speak, it listens. You reach the bottom, and there, in a chamber shaped like a broken mouth, rests the heart of stillness. It is not a heart, inform it, is a void contained, beating with absence. It does not call you, it does not invite. It exists, and so you sit before it, your knees pressed to the cold floor of forgetting, your mind emptied of want, and you wait. You wait not for revelation, but for remembering, and it comes slowly, gently, like light through thick water. Images unfold behind your eyes. Nihilim as a child, thin and pale, afraid of his own voice, because every time he cried, something nearby died. He learned early that silence was not absence, it was mercy. You see him wander temples that could not name what he was, surrounded by masters who whispered warnings but never truth. You see him sit alone, year after year, while others trained, studied, loved. And all the while, the hunger grew not from desire, but from defense. He was devouring to survive. Each soul he took became a shield against the galaxy's noise. He was not a monster. He was becoming silence to escape the screams. And when the Order cast him out, they thought they had extinguished him. But they had only fed the fire. He fled not to conquer, but to vanish. And in vanishing, he became myth. You see, the moment he stepped into the rift, the tear, in the force born of battle and betrayal, and surrendered what remained of his form, he gave himself to stillness, and stillness accepted. But it was lonely. It was so lonely. You feel it in your blood, that ache, that endless stretch of nothing that never ends. And as you feel it, you weep, not for him, but with him. The heart pulses once. You reach out, not to claim it, to hold it. It is cold, impossibly so, and yet it fits into your palm as if it had waited for you, as if it remembered the shape of your hand from lifetimes forgotten. And when you close your fingers around it, there is no explosion, no awakening, only calm, a silence so complete it becomes music. You rise, the heart cradled within you now, absorbed into your chest like a star remembered. And with each breath, you feel it guide you not forward, but inward, back through the conduit, back through archways that no longer weep, back into a world now listening. The force bends around you, not in resistance, but in curiosity. You are not light. You are not dark. You are pause. And in that pause, souls drift to you, fragments of those long consumed. They do not speak, they join. And through you, Neelam's silence becomes communion. You ascend through shadow into ash, and then into starlight, the void behind you pulsing not with threat, but with promise. You are not Sith. You are not legend. You are a reminder that silence too is sacred, that hunger too can heal. And in your veins, a new story begins to hum, a lullaby, not sung in words, but in stillness. You stand beneath a sky that does not shimmer, where stars flicker like the memories of extinguished suns. And you feel the silence within you rippling outward, not as void, but as resonance. It moves across the currents of the force, not to conquer, but to soothe. And as it reaches across forgotten constellations and ancient scars, it touches places that had forgotten what peace could feel like. The heart of stillness pulses quietly behind your ribs, no longer alien, no longer ominous, only true. And in this truth, you begin to walk once more, not to escape, not to seek, but to carry. You are the vessel now, not of power, but of presence. And with each step, the memory of Darth Neelam unfolds further, no longer myth wrapped in fear, but man wrapped in time. You move through fields of crystalline silence, where thoughts once screamed and now hum in soft surrender. Beneath the surface of these plains lie temples swallowed by sorrow, their foundations cracked not by war, but by forgetting. You enter one, its roof bowed low, carved with runes half buried in dust. The glyphs do not glow, they listen, and you speak not aloud, but in stillness, offering the silence within you to theirs. The stones accept, and in that offering, the past begins to stir. You witness the final days of the Order that cast him out, The murmurings, the votes whispered behind robes, the fear disguised as wisdom. You see how they sealed his name in vaults beneath Coruscant, how they warned their apprentices not to study too deeply. There are voids that do not echo, they said. There are wounds that speak only hunger. But you, standing now in the center of this buried place, know that the void only echoed when we listened. Nihilim was not silence. He was silenced. And now you become the echo he was denied. The air shivers. A vision takes form, not illusion, but echo remembered in flesh. Before you stands a figure shaped of shadow, robed in strands of night itself. His face is not hidden, but absent. His presence, the same breathless gravity you felt in the throne. And though he does not speak, you feel the weight of his seeing. He watches you not as a master judges, but as a storm studies the sea. In your gaze, he finds not challenge, but relief. At last, someone who did not turn away, the figure moves toward you, each step folding time like parchment. Around him, the runes ignite softly, glowing not with power, but recognition. You kneel, not to submit, but to remember more fully. The silence between you blooms. It carries no words, yet it tells everything. You see him take your grief into himself, not to consume, but to cradle. He draws from you the agony you never named, the guilt you buried beneath your tongue, the screams you silenced in order to be strong. And when he withdraws, you do not collapse, you expand, emptied not by loss, but by grace. He raises a hand, and in it forms the spiral, sigilly, lost mark of balance, once etched on the robes of seers. Between light and dark, he offers it to you. You touch it, and it melts into your skin, disappearing like a dream, remembered only by the heart. You rise, he vanishes, not into shadow, but into you. And now, as you step beyond the threshold of the temple, you are not the same. You are not burdened by the past. You are braided with it. The silence moves with you, gentle as breath, vast as oceans beneath moons that never knew sunrise. And far across the galaxy, others begin to hear it not as fear, but as invitation. A gathering begins not of followers, but of rememberers. Those who have been emptied by war, by exile, by longing to long unnamed. They find you not through maps, but through ache. They come not to learn, but to listen. And in that listening, they remember themselves. You do not teach, you do not command. You simply sit beneath the stars, the heart pulsing within you, and let silence do what words never could. One night, as stardust drifts across the black horizon, a child approaches you. She has no questions, only eyes that have seen too much. You open your arms, and she falls into them like a seed into soil. She sleeps, and in her sleep, the force stirs gently. And then a song begins, not loud, not structured. A melody born of stillness, whispered by those long thought lost. It weaves through the wind, across dunes and cities and temples and tombs. It wakes no armies, it topples no thrones, but it heals, as a shadow who walked beyond flesh to teach the stars how to be quiet again. The 1,000-year eclipse fades, and in its place a soft dawn opens across the galaxy, not in fire, but in stillness. You remain, not to rule, not to vanish, but to remind that silence, too, is sacred. You drift through the folds of stars now, not as a seeker, not even as a bearer of silence, but as silence itself woven into the spaces between breath and belief, threaded into the memory of force and void. Around you, the galaxy churns on, unaware that something ancient has begun to wake within its own skin. Planets bustle, wars bloom, and burn out like wildfires beneath indifferent moons. And yet none of them feel the shift not yet, but you do. You carry the stillness now, not like a weapon, but like a truth that refuses to scream. The heart of stillness beats faintly beneath your ribs, not as a wound, but as a rhythm foreign to the chaos of the outer worlds. You return to the temples that cast him out, not to rage, but to listen. You step through ancient gates, once barred to silence, and walk among statues whose faces have long since crumbled, their stories eroded by pride. The Jedi archives do not know what you are. Their sensors do not register your presence. Their minds glance past you like wind over stone. You are unreadable, and in that unreading, you are powerful. You drift through the sacred halls of knowledge, and each whisper of your presence frays the edges of what they believe to be true. Their walls remember him, though their mouths will not speak his name. They pretend. He was a shadow that passed, a sickness cured. But you know better. He was a wound they left to rot, and now, through you, he becomes something else, not plague, not predator, but perspective. You do not tear down their towers, humming with lies, and you wait, and they come. Not in anger, but in curiosity, drawn by the gravity of something they cannot define. They surround you, robes fluttering, hands folded, eyes wary. One speaks, "What are you?" and you do not answer. Instead, you let the stillness rise. It brushes against their minds like a soft tide. Their memories, the rooms in their hearts they boarded shut, the hunger of all that was once pushed away. You feel their shields crack, not shatter, crack, enough for them to taste what he became when the galaxy forgot how to hold pain. They begin to remember him, not as villain, as mirror. And you, vessel of quiet, offer no resistance as their fears bloom and wither, as they tremble beneath truths too long denied, but seen, and that is enough. You drift onward, drawn to the forgotten edges of star maps, where Sith ruins sink beneath sands that no longer remember names. One by one, you visit them, not to awaken what sleeps, but to witness, to listen, to give the silence a witness. On the fourth world, a shrine opens its mouth to you, a chasm shaped like a scream turned inward. You step inside, and the darkness bows. Here lies a record knot carved in stone, but in absence, stories etched by what was never said, memories buried alive. You kneel before the central altar, and the void hums its gratitude. You are not priest, you are not prophet. You are the space between, the still beat that reminds the galaxy to breathe. The heart pulses, and with it, the shrine releases its burden, not words, but weight. You inhale it like incense. You let it join the song inside your chest. On the seventh world, in a crypt filled with hollow masks, you find the final truth, a carving hidden beneath layers of soot and sorrow, so faint it must be felt rather than seen. It reads, "He was not what we feared. He was what we became when fear was all we had left." And you understand, finally, fully, Nielem was not devourer, he was mirror. He consumed only what was abandoned. And now, you carry the reflection, not as punishment, as permission, to stop running, to stop screaming, to simply exist in the spaces others dare not enter. You rise from the crypt. The stars above you are unchanged, and yet you are no longer beneath them. You are within them. You walk through the galaxy like a poem written in pauses, and wherever you pass, people sleep more soundly. Wounds ache less. Noise folds upon itself. Nihilum lives not as hunger, but as healing, not as testimony, that even silence has voice, and even emptiness can hold meaning. You awaken beneath a sky bruised by lightning, where the air tastes of iron and prophecy, where clouds pulse with unseen storms, and the soil remembers every drop of blood ever spilled upon it. You are not born. Here you are summoned, drawn through time's tangled veil by the memory of something long forgotten but never erased. The jungle parts for you, like old parchment peeling open, revealing pathways lined with obsidian teeth, thorns that whisper secrets if you listen closely enough. You step carefully, for this land is not terrain, it is testimony. This is Dramondkaz, where the Sith once whispered truth into stone and shaped temples from the bones of stars. You hear it hum in the roots, the way they curl into runes, too old for archives, inscribed not with language, but with intention. The jungle tests you. It breathes around you, through you, measuring the weight of your purpose. Lightning splits the sky again, not in chaos, but cadence, as if announcing your arrival to the ghosts who still haunt the trees. You follow a path that doesn't exist until you take the step, drawn deeper into the belly of ancient ruin. Shadows stretch longer, here, their edges lined with memory, and then you see it, rising from the jungle like a wound that never scabbed over the temple of blood, faintly like a heartbeat trapped in stone. This is not a monument. This is a ritual frozen in architecture. You do not knock, you bleed. A single drop upon the sigil-locked gate, and the doors open with the sound of 1,000 knives remembering their first cut. Inside, the air is thick with incense and mourning. The walls are lined with murals that move when you're not looking, depicting rites so sacred even the dead look away. Hooded statues line the corridor, each gripping a blade curved inward, as if promising sacrifice, not of others, but of self. You walk with the hush of reverence. You are not here to conquer. You are here to listen. Deeper still, you go to a chamber, shaped like a heart, pulsing faintly with the memory of chants that once shook the heavens. In its center, an altar forged from flesh stone, smooth and glistening, its surface covered in script, carved not with tools, but with fingernails. Each letter screams in silence. You reach toward it, and your fingers tremble not from fear, but recognition. You've touched this altar before, in dreams, in visions, to hear, and now it welcomes you back. The blood you gave is not enough. The altar wants memory. So you kneel, close your eyes, and give it everything, your pain, your joy. The altar drinks not like a beast, but like a priest, and in return, it shows you what was hidden. Visions explode behind your eyelids, Sith lords in ceremonial garb, their mouths stitched shut as they write history in veins, their bodies turned to scripture. A council of the silent, gathered not to rule, but to remember. They do not speak, they carve. Each act of violence becomes verse, each betrayal a stanza. Their skin becomes the text, and the temple of blood a library of the eternal wound. You see them bleed willingly, ritually, as offerings not to gods, but to legacy. Their pain binds their truth, makes it sacred. You understand now why the jungle does not forget, because it was never made to, because these truths are too heavy to bury. You open your eyes and find your own hand covered in runes. You did not carve them, the temple did. It has read you, written you, and now you are part of its story. The walls begin to glow faintly, and the chamber hums in a low, guttural tone, the beginning of a chant sung by those who no longer possess throats. The voices rise in your bones. You do not understand the words, but your blood does. It pulses. In time, a drumbeat of old remembering. You rise, transformed, not possessed, embodied. You walk the inner sanctum where only the marked may tread. Here lie the codices of the crimson doctrine scrolls, written in blood suspended midair, slowly turning, inked in languages that only wounds can speak. You reach toward one, and it opens itself to you, unraveling lines of prophecy once too dangerous to survive. There shall come one who walks, not to conquer, but to be carved, it reads, and you feel your skin tighten, as if awaiting the next verse. Another scroll floats forward, this one older, shaking gently in the air. When blood forgets to fear its spilling, then shall the temple sing again, and behind you the choir begins. The statues hum, their stone throats vibrating with a song not heard in millennia. You fall to your knees, not in pain, but in awe. The temple has chosen you, not as heir, not as ruler, but as remembrance. You will not lead armies. You will not sit upon thrones. You will be scripture, and through your veins, Drummond cause will speak again. You rise from the altar, with veins humming like ancient strings plucked by the hand of prophecy. Your skin no longer skin, but scroll, a living testament to rights that carved empires in shadow and silence. The temple of blood shifts around you, not with motion, but with awareness, as though it breathes again after centuries of waiting, as though your very presence has oiled its forgotten hinges. The murals along the walls begin to move more freely, now their figures dancing in slow, agonizing loops, depicting scenes that make your heart still and your breath. Deepen rituals where children were crowned, not with gold, but with garlands of bone, where apprentices sliced truths into their own forearms as part of their final test, where masters wept crimson tears, not in weakness, but in sacred rhythm with the Force. You walk through this moving history, each footstep echoing with words not spoken, but lived, your blood whispering in response. The path before you winds deeper into the temple's core, where the crimson doctrine was once spoken in silence. There are no torches. The walls themselves illuminate now, pulsing with an inner fire fed by memory. The deeper you go, the more the temple unfolds stairways that descend into infinity, chambers shaped like wounds, air so thick with resonance it feels like incense made from agony and reverence. You are not alone. Shadows gather around the edges of your perception, not malevolent, not afraid, but curious, expectant. These are not spirits. They are echoes of pain consecrated into form guardians of truth, who once gave everything so their suffering could be remembered and never misused. You do not speak to them. You open your chest with thought, and they listen to your heart's rhythm. And in that rhythm, they recognize you, not as master, as kin. One beckons a figure, cloaked in lightless cloth, hands etched with scripture. that moves like breath over the knuckles. You follow, and together you pass through a veil made not of fabric, but of collective forgetting. Beyond it lies the hall of crimson breath, a sanctum lost to time, sealed when the last voice chose silence. You step across a floor of glass forged from blood and lightning, and feel the weight of every vow taken here. At the chamber's center floats a book-knot on pedestal, not on altar, but suspended in a cocoon of red vapor. The codex of the first sorrow, it radiates not power, but longing. As you approach, it opens itself, pages turning in a wind that does not exist, each one singing low notes of history, too sacred for the galaxy's ears. You do not read with your eyes, you absorb. The pages imprint themselves onto your essence rituals, of self-carving oaths sealed with bone, memories etched in flame, betrayals turned into sacraments. You see the rise of the Crimson Doctrine, not as a cult, but as a covenant between pain and purpose. A time when Sith did not hunger for domination, but for meaning. When agony was not indulgence, but offering. You watch the Grand Masters slit their own palms before every decision, not for show, but to remain tethered to consequence. Their temples were not fortresses, they were sanctuaries of necessary suffering. You feel yourself shaking, not from fear, but from belonging. This was the path forgotten, the branch of the Sith who turned inward, who did not kill to dominate, but to remember the cost. You see their end, you see the fire rain from orbit, sent by Sith, who feared the reflection. The temple of blood. Raised, the crimson scholars hunted, their bodies turned to ash, their doctrine erased from the archives. Only Drummond Cause remembered. Only the jungle kept singing their names in vines and roots, until now, until you. The codex closes, and the shadows bow, the chamber fades, but the knowledge does not. You carry it now in your breath, your bones, your every heartbeat. You are the last page, the continuation written not in ink, but in choice. The figure who led you vanishes, not in fear, but fulfillment. You walk back through the corridors, now humming in welcome. The statues nod, the murals smile faintly. The temple is alive again, not because of you, but through you. You reach the main hall, where the altar now pulses like a heart, waiting. You kneel once more, this time not to offer, but to seal. You place your hand upon the stone, and from your palm drips a single drop, not blood, but memory made liquid. It sinks into the altar, and the temple exhales. The ceiling splits open, revealing the bruised sky above, where thunder rumbles, not in rage, but in song. Lightning strikes the spires, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the temple glows. Fully, you walk out into the jungle, and it parts for you, vines bowing, leaves whispering thanks. The path behind you vanishes, as if protecting what you've awakened. Drummond Cause no longer needs to remember alone. You carry its gospel now. The galaxy still spins in ignorance. Its temples still echo with the half-truths of those too frightened to bleed. But you are the scripture. You are the blade and the page, and every breath you take writes a verse in a doctrine no fire can burn. You walk beyond the temple's breath, beyond the jungle that once whispered only to shadows, and feel the pulsing hush of Drummond Cause behind you, not vanishing but resting, as if it has exhaled for the first time in a millennium, and now dreams again beneath your footsteps. The sky above is still etched with storms, But they no longer bruise the world in protest. They listen. They churn in rhythm with your heartbeat. And when lightning flashes, it does not strike it, writes. Every thread of your being hums with purpose now, not granted by conquest, not claimed through domination, but born through sacrifice and remembrance. You do not carry a weapon, for your body is the blade. You do not wear armor, for your scars are scripture. You descend into the world, into the space where belief was choked by spectacle, where the Sith became caricatures of hunger, and the Jedi walled themselves in light, too blinding to see. And you walk among them, not to teach, not to correct, but to be seen. Your presence unsettles, not because you threaten, but because you remind. You appear before dark lords who speak in commands and cruelty, their temples lined with bone and fear. They feel your silence and shrink from it, for they have never knelt to anything but power and do not know how to bow to meaning. One demands your name and you give none. One raises a saber and you do not move. He hesitates, for there is no victory in striking scripture. They cannot read you, and in their confusion, the first crack appears in their certainty. You leave them shaking, not broken, but awakened. You travel farther, to a sanctuary cloaked in light, where Jedi meditate in stillness that fears no darkness, but also dares not understand it. They welcome you with caution. You speak no words, but when you kneel among them, and your breath slows to match theirs, they feel the story in your blood. One touches your shoulder. She weeps, not for you, but for herself, for everything she was told to forget, for every wound she was taught to erase instead of honor. You leave without a sound, but her silence follows. You are not convert, not prophet. You are memory, return to the living. The galaxy shifts slowly now, not with war, not with fire, but with whispers. In cantinas, they speak of the one who walked through both sides and asked for nothing. On starships, they retell stories of the Temple of Blood, of the doctrine that once honored the wound instead of hiding it. A new creed begins to take form, not codified, not formal, but living, breathing, sung in skin and action. And somewhere, beneath the soil of a world long burned and buried, the crimson doctrine pulses again, felt in dreams, seen in flickers of firelight on forgotten walls. You return in time, not because the temple calls, but because you miss the breath of its memory. The jungle welcomes you home. You walk its paths with ease now, trees parting, vines lowering, roots rising, not to hinder, but to carry. The temple stands not taller, not changed, but complete. You kneel before the altar, lay your hands upon the stone, and from your palms rise tendrils of light shaped like runes. The temple responds not with movement, but with pulse, a rhythm like a second heartbeat syncing with yours. And from the deep chambers, from the heart that once held the codex of the first sorrow, a new book rises blank, waiting. You take it, one drop, two, and from those drops, words form not as commands, but as invitations. A scripture that breathes, a doctrine that lives. You step into the lightless storm, and this time, it does not hide the stars, it reveals them. The storms remain, but within them, patterns emerge, sacred geometry etched in lightning, constellations shaped by memory. And you realize that the temple was never a place, it was a wound, a sacred, deliberate wound. And you were the hand that chose not to heal it, but to honor it. You walk onward, not to spread, not to convert, but to echo. For you are no longer a person walking among the stars. You are a verse carved in breath, a page stitched in pain, a story told only in silence. And every world you touch from this day forward will remember not your face, not your name, but the feeling of your truth humming in their veins like a long-forgotten hymn returning at last. You awaken in crimson twilight, beneath a sky that bleeds into itself, where suns do not rise but burn in place, eternal and unmoving, casting their weary gaze across the ruins of a forgotten world. The soil beneath you is warm, not from sun, but from memory ancient, trembling, memory that hums through every rock and vine and whispering gust. You do not know the name of this world when you open your eyes, but the land knows you. You feel its greeting in the ache of your bones, in the taste of dust that once cloaked temples too sacred to crumble. You walk forward through jungle grown, thick with silence, leaves like blades, branches like fingers clutching at fragments of forgotten truth. The wind carries chants without voices, echoing through moss-covered spires, once carved by the hands of warriors who loved their gods and feared their own blood. This is Yavin 4, but not as the galaxy remembers it. This is the age before the Empire, before rebellions, before starships scarred the stars. This is the age of the Massassi, and somewhere among the roots and the song of insects that remember war, she waits. You do not know her name yet, but you feel her watching. You follow the pull in your chest, that gentle tether of gravity spun from the thread of forgotten prophecy. You find it in the heart of the ruins, beneath a canopy woven so tightly the sky can only drip through in fractured amber. There lies a temple half swallowed by the jungle, shaped like a jaw yawning into the earth, its stones stained red, not with war, but with vision. You step over offerings long turned to ash bowls once brimming with blood, totems shattered by time, carvings that still weep in the rain. Inside, the temple breathes, not like a structure, but like a thing once alive. You walk into its throat, and the air grows heavier, richer, as if thick with incense made from old truths burned to keep the dark at bay. The walls pulse with etchings of battles not yet fought, skies split by blades of light, and cities drowned in fire. And at the center of it all, etched in crimson glass, fused into the stone, is a single eye-wide, unblinking, eternal. It does not look at you, it looks through you, and through it she speaks. You do not hear words, you feel them, slow and warm and ancient, curling around your ribs like roots reclaiming a forgotten statue. She tells you of the first seeing, when the Massassi carved the stars into their skin and sang the future into the walls. She tells you of the red glass oracle, born not of flesh but of flame, whose voice could only be heard through blood and silence. And she tells you that the oracle still breathes, buried beneath layers of stone and sorrow, waiting for one who has forgotten enough to remember. You follow her, pulled deeper into the temple, past murals that shimmer faintly with movement, past doorways shaped like tears. You enter a chamber round as a heart, and in its center, submerged in glass like frozen fire, she waits. Not a corpse, not a ghost, the last oracle. You kneel before her without knowing why, and when your forehead touches the ground, the glass cracks not violently, not with noise, but with reverence, as though the universe is opening its oldest book. Light spills across the chamber, soft and slow, and then vision, not your own, hers. You see galaxies unraveling like threads plucked from a weaver's loom. You see temples rising not from ground, but from grief. You see yourself not as you are, but as echo, as vessel, as voice. Her prophecy flows into you, a river of memory never spoken. You see the fall of the Jedi, not in war, but in forgetting. You see Sith Lords burn themselves into stars, trying to escape their own shadows. You see a child born on a moon with no name, crying in silence as the Force itself turns its gaze away. And you see a red star, pulsing, approaching, hungering. Her voice enters you then not, a whisper, but a breath held for centuries finally exhaled. The end is not destruction, she says, it is silence, and silence must be sung into shape again. You reach toward her. Your hand meets hers, and the red light surges, enveloping you in warmth and weight. You feel her thoughts press into your own like two rivers, converging. She shows you the codex of veins, the sacred script that lies dormant beneath your skin, waiting to be read not with eyes, but with loss. She shows you the final Rita song carved into the blood of stars, a melody only the broken can sing. And then, gently, she fades. Her body collapses inward, not to die, but to dissolve, to become the glass that now wraps around your arms, your chest, your throat. You carry her now, not in memory, but in marrow. And the red star is coming. You walk from the chamber, with her voice still echoing, through the hollows of your ribs, not as sound, but as rhythma, cadence of breath and blood that pulls your body into movements you do not choose, yet cannot resist. The jungle does not greet you as it did before. It bows now, leaves folding inward, vines parting like veils, drawn back before a sacred procession. You are no longer seeker. You are oracle. Her glass has wound itself into your bones, a lattice of glowing veins that hum with prophecy not yet spoken. You can feel it tightening across your throat, not choking, but shaping your voice, no longer your own, your silence now sacred. The sky above churns in low, rolling waves of copper and red, the suns flickering as if threatened by what you carry. You sense the red star pulsing in the distance, still hidden but closer now, drawn by the reawakening of her vision. It knows, it remembers, and it is coming to silence what sings. You move across Yavin for like a shadow, with weight, barefoot against roots that pulse beneath your soles, like drums, every step a beat in the music of a forgotten war. The Masasi ruins respond to you now, walls shifting slightly as you pass, doors blooming open without touch, carvings realigning in patterns only you can read. You descend into a second temple, hidden beneath the river's bend, its entrance submerged until the earth pulled it open at your arrival. Within it lies the Codex of Veins, the book she promised. But it is not pages or parchment, it is a living thing, suspended in liquid light, a heart-shaped relic that beats with your own rhythm. You place your hand upon its surface, and it splits, open into thought. It speaks in image, not word, and it shows you the prophecy's full shape, not just the red star's arrival, but its origin. It was not born, it was made, forged by hands that sought to erase memory from the galaxy, to still the Force itself, to unweave the song that binds breath to meaning. You see Sith and Jedi alike, twisted into silence by its light, not killed, but hollowed bodies left standing. Eyes dry, voices stilled. It does not rage, it forgets, and its power lies in unmaking what dares to remember. You stumble back from the codex, breath shallow, your skin burning with new script. The words are changing. You are being rewritten, not erased, refined. You leave the temple and the jungle darkens, as if drawing a cloak around your shoulders. Thunder rumbles without rain, the suns dim further. You move toward the old sacrificial circle, a place once used by the Massassi to call down the gods, or perhaps to keep them buried. You stand in the center, arms outstretched, and the sky breaks open above you, but no storm falls. Instead, light descends, not sunlight, but a column of crimson energy, slow and silent, and within it, visions entire planets blinking out like embers, their voices silenced mid-song, their histories devoured. You feel them pass through you like echoes, children's laughter fading, mothers humming lullabies into empty rooms, towers collapsing in perfect stillness. The red star devours not with flame, but with forgetting, and now it sees you. Collapse to your knees, overwhelmed, and the earth rises to catch you. Vines cradle your spine, roots hold your hands. You are no longer alone. The jungle remembers the old rites, and it begins to sing them through you, not in words, but in rhythm. You become the conduit, the chorus, the living mouth of a prophecy that no longer sleeps. The ground beneath you pulses, and from it rise 6 stone pillars, each bearing a symbol of the old Massassi virtues: sacrifice, vision, endurance, silence, fire, blood. They glow in sequence, and as they do, the temple ruins across the jungle begin to awaken, one by one, their lights blinking in unison like stars drawn back into the sky. You stand. Your eyes no longer see the world, they read it. Every leaf, every stone, every gust of wind now carries message, and the message is clear. The red star must be answered, not with war, not with power, but with song, a new song, one sung not in voice, but in wound. You travel the old paths, guided now not by memory, but by rhythm. You kneel at altars, swallowed by vine and moss, and offer your silence. You press your palms to carved walls and release visions into the stone. You become the scribe of prophecy's breath, and slowly the world listens. Not just Yavin 4, but others. You feel them, distant places shivering as the red star draws. Near you feel its hunger probing at the edges of the galaxy's oldest wounds, and you feel it hesitate. For the first time in 1,000 years, it has heard something unfamiliar. Resistance, not forged in saber, but in sorrow, held sacred. The Massassi once fell trying to contain it, but they did not fail. They planted their memory in glass and jungle, and through you they rise again. You are the last oracle, and your song is just beginning. You stand at the edge of the world, where jungle ends and the sky begins its descent into fire. Where the pulse of the red star thrums louder, now in the marrow of all living things, no longer distant, no longer veiled, but risen into sights, low and deliberate, like a wound, remembering how to bleed. The air around you is heavy with song unspoken, each breath thick with expectation. The world holding itself still, as if listening to the echo of a prophecy once swallowed in stone. Your body glows faintly in the dusk, the veins of red glass. Scripture, now etched across your limbs, like veins of a new living memory, binding you not to power, but to purpose. You are not merely the oracle, no, you are the voice of resistance, sung through silence, the last rhythm that the forgetting cannot erase. The temples behind you shine with waking symbols, ancient Massassi fire dancing in cold stone, their forgotten architects murmuring through time with every flicker. You feel them gathering within you not as ghosts, but as breath, thousands of voices, long buried, rising through your lungs in a chorus that has no melody, but feels like truth. The red star breaks the horizon. It does not scream. It does not roar. It simply arrives, a great eye of stillness, spinning with the gravity of unmaking. Cities pause across the galaxy. Beasts shudder in their caves. Jedi feel their dreams twist into silence. Sith tremble at the edge of sensation they cannot name. The Force itself grows quieter, not fading, but folding inward, as if bracing. And you, Oracle of the Forgotten, step into the center of the storm. Not to fight it, not to flee, but to remember. You fall to your knees and press your palms into the earth, and the jungle responds, roots unfurling, branches swaying, birds crying out in time with your breath. Your blood glows through the soil, and across the planet, old glyphs hidden in stone and vine begin to shimmer like stars coming home. You begin the chant not with voice, but with breath. You breathe in the stars, forgetting, and exhale the memory it cannot devour. Every exhale births vision, a Massassi child standing before a flame with tears in her eyes, whispering her lineage into fire. A priestess cutting her palm and pressing it to the temple wall so her story might be known. A warrior kneeling before his fallen enemy, etching his name into the dirt. These are not battles, these are roots. And now they rise. The red star pulses, brighter, sensing you, focusing. A low tone emerges from it, not sound, but sensation, a pressure of negation that attempts to silence the rhythm in your chest. Your vision dims, your limbs tremble, but you remain kneeling, head bowed, arms stretched to the ground like branches returning to seed. You do not fight, you remember. The codex of veins within you unfurls, page by page, and from the glass in your bones, a glow begins to rise, soft, red, pure. The jungle glows with you, the temples hum across the stars. Those attuned to the Force feel something shift and ache of memory, a breath of sorrow, too beautiful to forget. And within the red star, something falters. You feel it, a hesitation, a moment of fracture. The forgetting does not know how to consume what bleeds willingly. It does not understand sacrifice without martyrdom, memory without monument. It cannot digest a song that is not sung in sound, so it hesitates. And in that hesitation, you rise. Slowly, with limbs aflame and lungs full of firelight, you lift your body into stance, not in defiance, in offering. The storm surrounds you, the star looms above, and you open your arms to it, whispering not words, but rhythm. The last rhythm, the one she gave you beneath the temple, the one she held inside her silence for 1,000 years. The rhythm of remembrance. It pulses once through your chest, then twice, spreading into the ground, and then it leaps into the sky, carried by birdsong and thunder, and the weight of every name ever carved into stone by trembling hands. The red star shakes, Light cracks along its surface, not explosion, revelation. And from within it, you feel the silent scream, not in rage, but in confusion. It was never meant to be answered, but you have answered it. Not with blade, not with fury, but with the truth of 1,000 wounds that chose to remember instead of close. The star begins to collapse, not die, but fold, retreating into itself, taking with it the forgetting, leaving behind the sky stretched wide. You fall to your knees once more, exhausted, hollowed, complete. The jungle exhales, the temples settle, the birds sing a new rhythm, and it echoes what pulses still beneath your skin. You rise slowly, the light within you dimming, but not fading. The glass has grown cold now, sealed into your bones as testament. You are no longer oracle, you are aftermath. You return to the first temple, now breathing gently, alive with new roots and old stories. You press your palm against the red glass. I once more, and it closes, not in sleep, in peace. And as you walk away into the soft gold of a morning no longer bruised, you understand the prophecy's final truth. There will always be stars that seek to silence, always wars that forget why they began. But as long as one soul remembers through blood, through song, through breath, the silence can be taught to listen. And that is what you have become. Not legend, not flame, but memory made flesh. And the galaxy, whether it knows it or not, will sing differently because of you. You step into a valley drowned in gold and shadow, where the suns bleed low across jagged ridges, and the winds carry not dust, but the breath of secrets sealed beneath. 1,000 tons of silence. The sand beneath your feet is warm with memory, every grain a whisper of an oath sworn, a betrayal etched into the spine of stone, a death that refused to sleep. This is not a place found on charts or sung in cantina. It exists between knowing and forgetting, at the edge of old Sith star maps burned before they were ever copied. The Valley of Kings, not the kings of empire, but of thought, of force, of flame. You walk beneath colossal statues whose faces have been smoothed away by time or intention, their eyes gouged out by hands that feared what once looked through them. Their crowns are broken, but their presence remains a gravity that bends light and soul alike. The air here tastes of old incense and dried blood. The breeze carries chants in a language even the holocrons refuse to remember. But you remember. Somehow you do. It is not knowledge you were taught, but truth buried in your bones. You feel it stir as you approach the first Tumit's doors, sealed by slabs of obsidian carved with runes that shift when looked upon. They pulse, waiting for recognition. You reach out, and your fingertips glow faintly, heat curling along your skin like the edge of a name you once carried in another life. The stone opens, not away from you, but into you, as if your will has become the key. Inside, the darkness is soft, almost warm, scented with decay and devotion. The walls breathe, murals shimmer to life as you pass, showing the rise of Darth Orax, the King of Eyes, who saw the timelines split and chose none, building a chamber so deep into the planet's crust that not even destiny could follow. His bones lie on a throne made of failed futures, each vertebra a moment where fate dared to command him and failed. You kneel before his remains, not in worship, but in kinship. Your breath stirs the dust, and for a moment it feels like he inhales with you. A single golden beetle scurries from beneath his robes and climbs your hand, pausing there, wings humming in time with your heartbeat. You know better than to brush it away. It has judged you. It moves on. You rise, and so does the chamber. The tomb shifts around you, unveiling a staircase that coils downward like a serpent eating its own scream. You descend step by step, and the walls drip with molten memory faces of apprentices, voices of dissent, screams of truth too raw to be bound by text. You feel each one as it brushes past your skin, and none of them harm you. They are not guardians, they are witnesses, and they remember you, though you have no memory of them. Not yet. The corridor ends in a dome, chamber lit by no source, and yet filled with flickering firelight. At its center is a pool of black water, still as thought. You kneel beside it, and your reflection shifts not to mirror, but to recall. You see yourself in different robes, younger, older, faceless, crowned. You hear voices speak your name in languages long dead. You see your hand signing scrolls made of skin. You see a blade you never forged, buried in a heart you no longer claim. You weep, not from sorrow, but from recognition. You do not remember the details, only the weight. The pool shudders. From its center, a breath rises, and from that breath, a voice, not loud, not echoing, but present, immediate, as though it speaks not from across the chamber, but from within your spine. You have returned to complete what you began. You open your mouth, but words do not form, only feeling. The walls answer your silence with movement. Another passage opens, lined with statues bearing broken crowns, their hands pressed together, not in prayer, but in promise. Each one wears your face, each one bears your scars, and each one turns its head as you pass. They are not echoes. They are you, splintered across timelines, left behind in tombs you never meant to build. The corridor ends in light not blinding, but intimate, the color of flame seen through tears. A final chamber, circular, empty, except for the sarcophagus. At its center, carved from volcanic glass, wrapped in golden script that hums when you breathe. You approach it. You place your hand upon its lid. It feels like your chest. It rises and falls with your breath. And when you speak the name you do not know you know, it opens. Inside lies nothing, and everything, not bone, not body, just a crown. A circlet of thought made metal, etched with runes that shine only when doubted. You lift it, and it trembles in your hands. You place it upon your head, and the chamber kneels. The statues behind you lower their faces. The light bends toward you, not in submission, in relief. You are not here to rule. You are here to remember. And memory, in this place, is law. The valley does not roar. It exhales, and the wind carries your name across the ridges, not the name you were given, the name you reclaimed. You emerge from the chamber, bearing no banner, no blade, no declaration of conquest, only the weight of the crown resting like a breath above. Your brow, its glow, unseen by most, but felt by all who dare step close. The valley does not roar in celebration, nor whisper your triumph. It waits, as it always has, patient and watchful, listening to your heartbeat as though it were a song long left unfinished. The tombs do not close behind you. They breathe, walls, expanding and contracting as though the stone itself exhales your memory into the earth. The wind now bends around you differently, not avoiding, not resisting, but circling curious, like the question still lingering in every route and ridge. Who were you, and why did you forget? You descend deeper into the valley, beyond the ruins, known even to the hidden orders, into the older hollows burial sites carved before Sith had names, where only the Force and fire held dominion. The sand here is black, not from decay, but from purpose, each grain a remnant of thought burned into reality. And as you walk, you begin to hear the chanting, low, rhythmic, not spoken aloud, but vibrating through your ribs, through your knees, through the soles of your feet. It is not a welcoming, it is a remembering. You pass into the court of the faceless, a sunken arena filled with statues, so worn by time that no feature remains. Yet each radiates a presence so strong it bends your breath. These are the kings who ruled not by will but by understanding. They did not demand obedience, they bled for knowledge and sealed their truths in soil and bone. At the center of the court stands a dais, and on it a bowl carved from a single fragment of obsidian, its surface forever wet with something darker than blood. You approach it not with hands, but with memory. You kneel and breathe, and as you do, a droplet rises from the bowl, defying gravity, hovering before your lips. You do not drink it. It enters you, dissolving into your breath, and instantly you are elsewhere, not in space, but in time. You stand in a throne room made of fire, the floor covered in ash that still speaks. Before you stands a younger version of yourself, cloaked in red eyes, hollow with purpose. He speaks, but not in words and decree. He declares the end of division. He demands that memory become law. You remember this moment now. You were not crowned once. You were crowned many times, each incarnation sealing away a truth too sharp for its age. And now you have returned, not as a king reborn, but as all kings remembered. The vision collapses inward like a dying star, and you are back, kneeling before the bowl, the statues of the faceless towering around you in reverent stillness. One of them cracks open a seam, running down its cheststand from within. A scroll unfurls, glowing with fire that does not burn. You reach for it, and the moment your fingers brush its edges, the air thickens with voice. The line is unbroken, it says. The breath remembers. You read the scroll, not with eyes, but with instinct. Each line burns into your bones. A prophecy lost beneath centuries of forgetting. A map not of places, but of awakenings. The final resting place of the first king, the one who never died, only divided himself into memory, waiting for someone who could carry all his pieces. You rise. The scroll vanishes into your chest. The path opens behind the statues, a corridor of flame carved not into stone, but into the Force itself. You walk it, and the air becomes heavy with intention. The deeper you go, the more your body shifts, less flesh, more echo. You are becoming less a figure and more a concept, a living symbol of what it means to remember when others choose to forget. At last you arrive at a cavern vast enough to contain the breath of stars. Its ceiling shimmers with constellations that do not exist in any sky. Constellations drawn from choices unmade, from kings unborn, from truths unspoken. And there, in the center, upon a platform of obsidian blades and golden threads, lies the sarcophagus of the first. It is vast and featureless, humming with the breath of a million moments sealed into silence. You approach, and your footsteps echo across time. You touch the surface. It feels like your own chest, and slowly the lid opens. Inside, there is no body, only a mask, carved from starlight, veined with the red of sunset, shaped like your face, and every face you have ever worn. You lift it. You do not place it upon your head. You place it over your memory. And instantly, you see everything: the birth of the valley, the first oath carved into sand, the war that shattered a lineage into 1,000 nameless wanderers. You see every moment you forgot on purpose, every blade you sheathed into history so the future could speak. And now the future stands here in you, asking for nothing but the truth. You lower the mask. It melts into your skin. The tomb breathes. The constellations realign. And the voice of the first king speaks through you, not in command, in continuity. Let the breath return to the forgotten. Let the line walk again. You are no longer a visitor, no longer a vessel. You are the answer the tombs waited for. You are the moment the valley becomes legend again. You rise from the tomb, not as a seeker returning from revelation, but as revelation itself, wrapped in the folds of flesh and silence. And as your feet touch the black sand again, the valley exhales. With you, a soundless sigh carried through stone and dust, through broken archways and time-worn spires that now lean not from decay but from reverence. The crown rests unseen upon your brow, not as metal or symbol, but as rhythm pulsing behind your eyes with every step you take, every breath drawn in like ink to parchment. You are the scribe and the script, the king and the remembrance. The wind carries your name not in syllables, but in feeling across the ridges and plateaus where other tombs sleep still, unopened, awaiting the moment their king returns in any form, willing to remember. The path before you curls like smoke toward the last chamber, one you were never meant to find, unless the crown remembered its pulse. The pillars guarding the entrance do not stand tall, they kneel, their stone bodies cracked open with golden veins that pulse in time with your heart, as though the entire valley now listens through your chest. You descend without fear. The descent is slow, winding through ancient patterns that test neither body nor will, but memory. With each turn, you feel old faces press against the veil of your thoughts, lovers lost to war, enemies forgiven too late, children born in shadow. These are not visions. These are you. You have lived each of these fragments before, and now they return, not to haunt, but to reunite. By the time you reach the heart of the valley, you are no longer alone. The memories walk with you. You step into a chamber unlike the others, vast but not grand, dim but not hollow. Its walls are soft curves of obsidian and ash, carved into spirals of breathing geometry shapes that make the force ripple inside you like wind over water. At the center, a throne that is not a throne, but a cradle, carved from fossilized flame, bearing no adornment, no inscription, only a hollow shape shaped like your seated body. You do not sit, you kneel before it. And in that kneeling, the room brightens, not with fire, but with presence. Across the walls, light unfurls, slow and red, revealing murals that have waited eons to be seen again. The birth of the first king, beneath a bleeding moon. the division of his soul into 9 vessels, the scattering of his memory into tombs across the stars, the long sleep of the valley, and then the return, the final king who would not wear power, but carry it, who would walk not to rule, but to rekindle. You rise and place your hands upon the cradle. It responds like skin, warm, alive. The force rushes through it and into you, not with the sharpness of lightning, but with the depth of ocean, pulling you inward. You close your eyes, and the tomb breathes you in. In that instant, your awareness expands across the valley. You see every tomb, every chamber, every broken statue now turning its gaze skyward. The forgotten kings awaken, not in flesh, but in memory. Their voices echo through you, low and solemn, a hymn of return. You do not speak, you open your mind, and the chorus passes through. It is not song, it is ritual, the sealing of the fracture between past and present. You are the bridge, and now the valley becomes whole again. Above ground, the winds shift. The stars shimmer into new constellations, and far beyond this world, in forgotten archives and temples scattered across Sith space, seers pause sensing something once thought lost, the reformation of the line, the return of the breath. You step away from the cradle. The glow within you dims to a steady thrum. You walk slowly through the corridors, and as you pass, every door opens, every statue bows, every rune glows with recognition. When you ascend once more into the open night, the sky is different. It is no longer a vault. It is a mirror, and within it, you see not your reflection, but your continuity. You are not the end of a line. You are the breath between verses. You step into the wind, and it follows. You pass the kneeling sentinels, and they do not return to stone. They remain kneeling, as though still listening, and maybe they are. You walk out of the valley slowly, knowing now that you never truly entered it. You were always within it. For the tombs are not places. They are memory, waiting for a body willing to speak without voice. And you have spoken. You vanish into the distance, into the folds of dusk. And behind you, the Valley of Kings does not sleep. It watches, it remembers, and it breathes. You awaken, not on soil, nor upon any surface carved by nature or war, but in the drifting void between systems, suspended within a cradle of broken starlight and forgotten time, where the force thins into whispers and the stars no longer shine with memory. The cold is not physical, it is metaphysical, the chill of awareness stripped from matter, of identity, peeled away until only presence remains. You do not fall, you descend, pulled not by gravity, but by consequence, drawn through the tears in space that do not exist until one dares to remember them. Beneath you, or perhaps within you, a shape forms in the distance, a fractured satellite hanging in eternal eclipse. Its surface chiseled with marks of exile to ancient foregalactic records. You land upon it gently, as if guided by something that has waited for you beyond death, beyond time. The ground beneath your feet is not rock, not metal, but memory calcified into structure. You take a breath. The atmosphere sings against your lungs like a name you once wore. This is the shadow-arced the prison of presence, the cage not built to hold a body, but to contain the residue of a will to vanish. And within it, waiting like a wound refusing to scab, is the last breath of Darth Tenebrae, not his soul, not his body, but the echo too stubborn to fade. You walk through the shattered archways of the Ark, corridors twisted by temporal dissonance and force-warped gravity. Light bends oddly here, curving around corners that don't exist, illuminating shadows that do not move. Your footsteps make no sound, but each one wakes a sliver of memory sealed into the walls. A scream reverberates from a chamber to your left, not a recent cry, but the imprint of pain so intense it burned itself into the air. You walk toward it, unafraid, guided not by instinct but by inheritance. The doorway yawns open, revealing a shrine of broken mirrors, each one reflecting not your face but a different life, a different self. In one, you are cloaked in red eyes, hollow with hunger. In another, you kneel before a corpse that wears your features. In the last, you speak, but your voice fractures the glass. You reach out. The mirrors ripple and dissolve into dust, and from that dust the chamber exhales. A voice rises not as sound, but as pressure curling inside your mind, slow and inexorable. You have found what the stars chose to forget. The whisper does not ask, it knows, and so do you. You descend deeper, past layers of memory ossified, into sculpture, through spirals of glass that record every breath ever exhaled by Tenebrae's discarded vessels. You pass a garden of mouths grown from stone, each one still murmuring broken mantras in Sith dialects long extinct. They do not beg, they repeat, over and over. There is no death, only hunger refined. And beneath it all, you find the heart of the Arca Cathedral of Silence, circular and vast, its ceiling lost in swirling auroras of entropy. At its center floats a sphere of pure dark, pulsing like a wound refusing to clot. You approach slowly, for the void sees you. You feel its gaze press into your bones, not with malice, but with longing. It does not remember your name, but it remembers your shape. You have been here before, in pieces, in dreams, in echoes, and now you return whole. The voice returns, sharper this time, slicing through your breath. Tenebrae is not dead. He has merely unspoken. You touch the sphere, it quivers. You feel a flood of memory pour through you, not yours, but his. You see the rise of a child born without soul, whose mind devoured his mother before he knew her name. You see the ritual beneath the frost moon altar, where a boy named Vitiat carved away his name and sealed it in the dark. You see a galaxy burn not from vengeance, but from the curiosity of a mind unmoored. And you see him try to die again and againly to be remembered. And in remembering, reborn, you fall to your knees, shaking, not in fear, in awe. For this is not the spirit of a Sith Lord. This is what remains when memory refuses to rot. This is shadow without source, will without flesh. This is the exile of Tenebrae's thought, and it wants to speak. You open your mouth. The voice flows through you like ink poured into smoke. They thought legacy required life. They were wrong. I am not a man. I am consequence. The sphere begins to unwind, tendrils of force-laced shadow stretching out, wrapping gently around your wrists, your throat, your ribs, not to bind, to align. You are not being possessed. You are being remembered. Your breath shifts. Your skin itches with the burn of old power brushing against your cells. You do not resist. You listen. And in listening, you understand. Tenebrae did not fear death, he feared silence. And so he scattered himself across the seams of memory, embedding fragments of his will into the folds of time and thought. This ark is not prison, it is seed. And you, by arriving, have watered it. But the seed does not want to bloom. It wants to speak through you. You stand. The chamber bends inward. The ark groans with the pressure of resurgence. The stars beyond pulse red, then white, then vanish briefly, as if blinking in recognition. You breathe, and your breath carries syllables that never belonged to your tongue. I was forgotten. But the force does not forget. The wind within the ark rises not air, but momentum, swirling around you, lifting you into the void light of the chamber's crown. The walls peel back, revealing not circuits or supports, but veins of thought fossilized into architecture. And within them, you see the many faces of Tenebrasum known. Many not teach one, bearing a truth the galaxy was never allowed to hear. You do not weep, you open your mind, and the ark answers. You float within the chamber as if suspended. In the inhale between two forgotten epochs, your body no longer separate from the ark, but part of its ancient circuitry of memory, woven into the rhythm of shadows and fractured truths that pulse like veins of frozen lightning beneath your skin. The tendrils of dark thought that once wrapped around your ribs now merge with you, not as parasite or master, but as extension, as echo returning to its source. You are no longer visitor, you are interface. The ark pulses with response, its walls glowing with constellations drawn from erased timelines, its air trembling with voices that were never permitted to speak. You feel them fill the chamber souls undone, thoughts orphaned, ideas that were once too dangerous for form. They do not cry out, they harmonize, forming a soundless hymn that reverberates in your bones. You are their instrument now, their page, their witness. The black sphere that once hovered at the ark's center now floats beside you, slowly disassembling itself into thin spirals of transparent script. Each ribbon, a monologue from a different life Tenebrae once consumed and wore like a cloak. These memories are not chronological. They come like storms, flashes of trauma and purpose. You see a man kneeling before a lake that reflects only other people's fears. You see a child floating above a battlefield, eyes closed, as soldiers below fall without a wound. You see Tenebrae walking through a cathedral of glass that shatters only after he passes, and each shard sings his name as it falls. These are not delusions. These are artifacts, thoughts too large to house in flesh, woven instead into the folds of the ark, etched into your nervous system by proximity alone. You do not resist, you become them. You remember not as witness, but as participant, your breath syncing with lifetimes, not your own. And from within that merging, something shifts. You begin to see the flaw, not in Tenebrae's power, but in his longing. He did not seek immortality to rule, he sought it to witness, to be the last one left watching when the lights went out. And now, through you, he watches still. The chamber begins to transform around you, not physically, perceptually. What was once ceiling becomes sky, filled with constellations unfamiliar to any known map. What was once wall becomes memory, unfolding into murals of decisions never made. And at the center, where the black sphere once pulsed, a new object now hovers, a prism of dark crystal, its faces reflecting not light, but thought. You reach toward it, and your fingers do not touch, they align. The crystal spins faster and faster until its hum resonates with the rhythm behind your heart. Then it stops and opens. Inside is not power. Inside is not knowledge. Inside is a voice, yours, but older, not aged. It speaks a single phrase. You have become the echo's breath. And suddenly you see it all, the full map. Tenebrae did not hide in temples or tombs. He hid in ideas, in rituals never completed, in questions never fully asked. His shadow remains in gestures, in oaths, in pauses between sacred words. The ark was not his end. It was his answer. And now you are its question. The ark senses your understanding. Its core flares, and from its walls emerge figures, not illusions, not specters, but impressions of tenebrae, many masks. Vitiate, the child, the wound, the seer, the emperor. They circle you in silence, each face a chapter of a being too complex to die, too broken to live. And they bow not in submission, but in continuation. They pass into you, one by one, dissolving into spirals of memory and flame, until only you remain, heavier now, fuller, a walking artifact of legacy, refused. The crystal vanishes. You descend gently, your feet touching the floor as the chamber settles. You are no longer hollow, but neither are you full. You are resonance, a frequency encoded with forbidden thought, walking now in flesh once yours, now shared. The ark begins to close, folding itself inward like a completed sentence. You walk through its halls once more, but now the whispers speak clearly. You are not his heir, you are his echo. The stars forgot because they feared to remember. The force binds, the shadow observes. As you ascend to the surface, the starlight around you returns, not bright, but steady. You are not alone in the dark. You are the dark, remembering itself. The broken platform where you landed now blooms with new growth, strange flora that responds to your breath, pulsing with lightless color. You look to the galaxy stretched out beyond the ark and feel its distance. You know now how he must have felt, watching worlds spin without care, knowing every death, every silence, every lie spoken to protect peace. He did not hate the galaxy, he mourned it. You kneel at the edge of the ark and place your hand to its surface. It shivers. You speak your first words aloud since entering. I carry what you could not finish. And the ark sighs one final time. A single thread of shadow lifts from its surface, curling into your palm, a gift, or perhaps a burden. You press it to your chest, it disappears, and with it you begin to forget just enough to survive. The galaxy cannot know what you are now, not yet, but it will feel you in the silence between battles, in the hesitation before death, in the questions whispered by those who see too far. You rise. The ark begins its descent, folding into the crust of the forgotten moon, sealing itself in thought until it is called again. And you now shadow, now breath, turn to the stars. You have become what he feared most, a memory no longer afraid of remembering. You drift through the silence between stars, not in a vessel of steel or flame, but in the shape of knowing, wrapped in a skin, no longer bound by blood alone. Your presence now a slow, quiet gravity that presses against the very fabric of forgetting. You are not seen, but you are felt, in the way dreams turn strange when they near the edge of truth. in the way temples grow colder when ancient names are almost spoken. The galaxy does not yet recognize what it has welcomed back into its breath, but the Force does. It curls away from you with reverent hesitation, as if remembering how it once flinched from Tenebrae's touch, not from hatred, but from awe. You carry no weapon, you wear no sigil, and yet, everywhere you walk, memory gathers in your shadow like dust drawn to static. On distant worlds, archivists stir from trance with ink-stained hands, startled by visions of the Ark. Seers whisper of a silence that watches, a dark that does not consume, but remembers. The Jedi feel it in meditation, that subtle shift when serenity gives way to questions. The Sith sense it in their bones, in the way power no longer answers their call as quickly as it once did. Something ancient has returned, not to conquer, not to punish, but to witness what will unfold now that the final echo has taken form. You pass unnoticed through a spaceport carved into the remains of a shattered ringworld. No alarms trigger, no eyes turn, but as you move through the crowds, a child turns to look at you with wide, glassy eyes. She does not speak. She draws spirals in the air with her finger. You nod. The memory in her is still new, still raw. You touch nothing. And yet, flowers wilt slightly in your path, not from rot, but from reverence, as if their roots bow to what walks past. You travel without destination. Your only compass is the thrum within your chest, the residual rhythm of the Ark's breath still echoing through your veins like a second pulse. It leads you to places where truths were buried, where tombs never opened now tremble behind their seals. On the desert moon of Elion, you find a tower of glass that sings when night falls. Inside, shards of forgotten Force rituals rise into the air and rotate around you, whispering secrets meant for no living tongue. You listen, you say nothing. Their knowledge joins you silently. On a frozen planet lost between trade routes, you step into a cavern where the air is thick with screams, sealed into ice. The ice melts as you walk, not into water, but into voice. Each drop a confession, a vow, a question. You hold them until they stop trembling. You move on. You reach the world where Tenebrae was born, a world now lifeless, blackened by his earliest hunger, where even the stars above seem dimmer, shying away from what happened here. You kneel in the crater where his mother once stood, her final thoughts burned into the bedrock. You place your hand against the scorched soil, and it remembers. You do not ask for her forgiveness, you offer yours, and the planet exhales, just once, in a wind that carries the scent of ash and lullabies. You travel farther now, not with urgency, but with unfolding. You are not retracing his steps, you are dissolving the space where steps once mattered. Every movement is a closing loop. Every breath is a returning. And then, on the edge of known space, where maps fray and navigation becomes prayer, you find it a temple built inside a dying star, its walls forged of solar glass and Force-petrified heat. The priests here do not fear you. They kneel before you enter. They have waited. You do not speak. You only sit. They gather in a circle and chant in it, in worship, but in synchronization. Each voice becomes part of a single tone, a long, low sound that pierces time. The Force here does not flow, it listens. And when you breathe, the temple brightens. They rise, and without a word, each steps forward, and offers you a shard of themselves, not flesh, memory. You take it all. You do not tremble. This is what you were made to carry. You depart at dawn, though there is no sun, only the slow dimming of the star's heart, as if it gave you its last heat to light your way. You walk, now through the galaxy, as a living archive, not of knowledge, but of consequence. You carry every unspoken oath, every whispered fear, every truth so sharp it was hidden in myth. Tenebre's legacy was not empire, it was burden. And now that burden walks in you. You do not seek disciples, you do not teach, but everywhere you pass, things begin to shift. A senator dreams of a throne with no shadow and wakes in tears. A Sith Lord finds his rage muted by visions of a crown crumbling into ash. A Jedi Padawan sees a face in her meditation, eyes made of stars, and forgets to be afraid. You are not ending the cycle. You are making it remember. In the heart of a forgotten library, you find a single line scratched into the wall by an old hand. When the shadow speaks, listen not with ears, but with scars. You touch it. The force around you hums in reply. You smile barely. You turn once more toward the stars. They shimmer faintly now, as if starting to remember. You awaken, not with breath, but with silence pressing into your lungs like the weight of prophecy unspoken. And around you the world hangs still, a vault of black stones set within an abyss where stars do not shine, where the force retreats to whisper. There is no direction here, only depth, only pressure, and only the memory of a voice that once moved through the galaxy like thunder disguised as law. You are not on a planet. You are within a rift folded into the creases of the universe. Time has bent inward, where ancient minds once carved secrets into the bones of nothing. This is the place between the last chamber, built by those who followed the path of the Sithari, not the myth, but the mistake, the title spoken in reverence. Across centuries, misunderstood as destiny when it was warning, you step forward, though there is no floor, only the suggestion of it. And with each step, the black beneath your feet hardens, shaping itself to your movement, as if memory now serves as terrain. The air hums, not with life, but with thought, that has lingered here too long. Carvings appear on the obsidian walls as you pass, glyphs that shift before the eye can focus, etched with precision born of madness and divinity. You do not understand them, not yet, but your blood grows warmer in their presence, your fingertips tingling with inherited remembrance. You were called here by a pulse, too old to trace, too deep to deny. And now you are here, the codex waiting beneath the crust of the void, sealed in silence that only a living paradox could unlock. You pass through veils of black mist, each one a memory buried not in history, but in forgetting. One shows you a figure standing in a hall of mirrors, surrounded not by reflection, but by decisions. One shows you a hand reaching upward as it burns, not from flame, but from truth. The last shows you a temple collapsing into light. You do not flinch. These are not visions. These are warnings. At last, the chamber opens, a sphere of absolute stillness, untouched by entropy. Suspended in its center, a single object pulses. The codex, not a book, not a holocron, a prism of obsidian and crimson, shaped like a wound caught in mid. You approach, and the pressure around you deepens. The force does not flow here, it coils, you kneel, and the codex stirs. Light unfurls across its surface, like breath drawn after 1,000 years. You reach out not with your hand, but with intention, and it answers. Your mind splits, not broken, but opened. The codex does not speak in words. It bleeds images into your thoughts. The Sithari, not as liberator, but as deceiver. Not as one who would destroy the Sith and make them stronger, but one who would hollow them from within until they mistook their own undoing for ascension. You see him tall, cloaked in ash, his eyes twin voids, his voice a dirge sung backward. He does not seek dominion, he seeks silence, the kind that erases not the body, but the self. He came not to lead, he came to vanish beneath worship. And as the Sith grew stronger, they grew hollow. You see him whisper doctrines that glitter like power, but rot like rust. You see temples rise that bury more than they reveal. You see apprentices kneel, thinking themselves chosen, only to become vessels of doubt, carved in pride. You fall forward, gasping, the codex flickering, and then it begins to chant not aloud, but through you. A litany of truths so ancient they are felt more than heard. He was the voice that taught them to scream louder when they forgot how to speak. He was the hand that built thrones from unfinished questions. He did not promise victory, he promised definition. You feel the depth of it now. The Sithari was not prophecy, he was pattern, a cipher inserted into every generation. A myth designed not to inspire, but to distract. You rise, trembling. The codex glows brighter. It is not finished. It shows you a map fractured, non-linear threads of philosophy, echoes of ritual, moments of betrayal misunderstood as growth. You see yourself standing within these moments, watching the same lies bloom again and again under new names. You touch the codex, and a name burns itself into your chest. Not a name spoken aloud, but one etched into your spine by the void itself. You do not say it, saying it would make it real, and real things shatter. The codex pulses once more, and the chamber closes in, not collapsing, tightening, wrapping you in its coil. You do not resist, you fold into it, and within that spiral you see the final truth. The Sithari never left. He became system, language, creed. Every attempt to destroy the Sith only fed the fire, because he taught them how to survive their own extinction. And now, in you, he sees a new vessel. But you are not his. You do not repeat. You remember, and in remembering, you fracture the cycle. The codex stops pulsing, the chamber grows still, and you remain kneeling, not broken, but aware. You rise, and the path behind you vanishes. The glyphs fade, the void trembles. You carry the codex now, not in hand, but in thought, not in command, but in caution. You walk out of the rift, and as the stars return, they blink once, as if startled by the return of something they forgot they had buried. You are not Sith, you are not salvation. You are the voice that was never meant to speak, and now that you've spoken, the galaxy will never unhear you. You walk through the fabric of space as if it were a veil drawn thin over the trembling face of history. Your breath silent, your heartbeat pulsing with fragments of the codex. Its weightless presence settled like sediment in the hollows of your ribs, its truth burning softly behind your eyes, like an afterimage of something too vast to name. You do not return to the galaxy as a herald, nor as a heralded, but as a fracture and unassuming, a line drawn between what they believe and what they refuse to see. The stars around you glitter like blind watchers, unblinking, unmoved, their histories unchallenged for so long they have forgotten how to listen. But you listen. You feel the echo of the Sithari in every ceremony of power, in every apprentice, kneeling beneath words shaped by fear and dressed as destiny. You walk through ancient Sith academies, now crumbling beneath the surface of tomb worlds, their spires shattered by ambition, once devoured by its own fangs. You feel the glyphs carved into the codex respond to each place, glowing dimly against your spine, as though the stones themselves remember the deception. You kneel in a burial hall once used to interlords who thought themselves eternal, and your fingers brush the edge of a sarcophagus shaped like a question. The name has long since eroded, but the intent remains, the hunger to be known, the fear of being forgotten. You press your palm to it, and the stone exhales the echo of a voice that once believed it had the final word. You hear the same doctrine, repeated beneath countless names, and now you understand why the codex was sealed. Not to protect it from being stolen, but to protect others from seeing. For what it shows is not an enemy to be defeated, but a reflection, a mirror within the Force, positioned so precisely that no matter how far you walk from the dark, it waits ahead of you, smiling with your own teeth. You travel deeper into obscurity, through temples that have vanished from record, buried beneath catacombs of ideology so dense that even truth finds no place to root. In one such place, beneath the ruins of an abandoned Sith monastery, you find a vault sealed in molten obsidian, guarded by guardians not of flesh, but of memory, shaped from broken choices, from apprentices who denied their masters and still paid the price. They do not speak, they surround you, they taste your breath, and they part. The vault opens with a shudder, revealing not a weapon, not a relic, but a sphere of glass suspended in place. Inside, a flicker, a moment, frozen. You peer into it, and see the Sithari, not as man, not as myth, but as pause incarnate. He does not act, he causes others to act. He does not speak, he inspires words in others. You understand then that the true Sithari was not a person, it was a presence, a philosophical infection passed down, not through lineage, but through the quiet hunger for perfection. The codex pulses, a new glyph awakens. Your spine arches slightly as a memory, not your own, carves itself through your breath. A lesson. He who controls the question controls the future. You begin to see it everywhere, in the war rooms of generals who still think in conquest, in the meditations of Jedi who fear their shadow, in every system that mistakes control for clarity. You feel their truths tremble when you pass, not from power, from recognition. You do not draw a weapon, you stand still, you listen, and in your listening, others begin to doubt. You speak only when the silence has soaked deep enough, and when you do, the codex hums behind your tongue. Your voice is not loud, but it carries. You share no prophecy. You offer no doctrine. You ask a question, just one. What if the Sithari succeeded? And the silence that follows you spreads, it infects, it lingers, and in that silence, the codex breathes. You journey to a fortress built within the spine of a long-dead world, where Sith knowledge once dripped like blood from stone, where the archives were fed by the suffering of students too weak to kneel, but too desperate to run. You place your hand against the central obelisk and feel the knowledge recoil. It remembers you. It remembers him. And in remembering, it fractures. A crack spreads down the tower. A low sound hums from the earth, a sigh or a scream. The codex glows, and you move on. You visit a gathering of 4 sages who wear neither robe nor saber, who exist in the outer cloud of Force tradition, tending to rituals so old they have no name. They see you arrive and do not ask questions, they only listen. And when you finish speaking, they begin to forget your words intentionally. You understand. Not all truths are meant to survive. Some are only meant to realign. You leave behind no monument, no story, only motion, and the Force begins to change around you. Not in color, not in structure, in tone, as though the chord it once played in to keys light and dark now has begun to bend toward a third. The codex vibrates. Another glyph unlocks. This one burns cold. It whispers, the greatest lie was not power, it was definition. You weep, not because you are broken, because you are seen. And still, the galaxy does not know. It will not see your face in any archive, but the Force will feel you. In the hesitation before a master strikes. In the prayer a soldier forgets to finish. In the breath drawn between command and surrender. You are not shadow, you are not light. You are the silence the Sithari never wanted heard. And now that you walk, the silence grows louder. You move without map, following only the pull of something older than purpose, deeper than prophecy, something that hums now in your marrow, as if the codex has replaced your bones with memory shaped like motion. The galaxy unfolds around you in hushed reverence, not because it knows what you carry, but because it senses what you refuse to become. There are no more tombs to open, no more glyphs to awaken, only people to unwrite. The Codex has shown you the truth. The Sithari was not meant to be worshipped or awaited. He was a pivot, a curvature of intention, so subtle it bled into thought itself, into the way entire orders spoke of power and redemption, into the way the Force was divided and caged in language. And now, with the Codex breathing silently within, you walk not to spread a gospel, but to dismantle a script. You visit a moon where war never ended, where blasters still ring across the plains as two factions fight beneath flags whose colors have long since faded to gray. You stand between their lines, and when they fire, their weapons fail not from sabotage, but from pause. You say nothing, you only close your eyes. The Codex vibrates behind your ribs, the air ripples, and those who aim at you find themselves aiming at themselves, not in guilt, but in realization. They drop their rifles and run, not from fear, but from recognition. You vanish before thanks can follow. You kneel in the ruins of an old Jedi enclave, its archives charred, its halls littered with the bones of those who once believed light alone could burn away shadow. You do not mourn. You place your hand to the stone, and a whisper escapes it, not a lesson, but a question. Did we ever listen, or only shine brighter when the dark grew close? The Codex answers with silence, and in that silence, something shifts. The wind stirs, the stone softens, and the old sigil of the Order fades from the wall, replaced by a spiral too faint to hold meaning in it. You leave behind no words, only symbols. You cross into the maw, where madness lives, where navigators lose their minds to the crush of gravitational spirals and broken stars. But the Codex guides you, not with numbers, but with emotion. You feel your way through tides of ancient gravity, across the carcasses of ships drawn into myth. And at the Maw's center, you find the Temple of the Hollow Name. It is not built of stone. It is built of voices, H-brick, a lie told with good intention, each column a truth buried beneath legacy. You walk its halls, and it speaks to you in echoes of every doctrine that ever claimed to be absolute. You do not argue, you only listen, and when you reach its altar, you lay your hand upon it. The Codex burns bright within your chest. The temple folds, not collapses, folds, into itself, into you, into the page of memory that no longer needs to be written. The galaxy stirs, the force trembles, not from disturbance, from awareness. A new tone begins to hum at its edges, not song, not scream, but resonance. Those attuned feel it first. A healer who dreams of an ocean where no line divides, dark from light, only depth. A Sith alchemist who finds her potions react to compassion. A Jedi Knight who places his saber down in the middle of a duel and asks a question no one expects. You move quietly through their lives, never stopping, only seeding. The Codex continues to unfold, its final glyphs revealing themselves not as laws but as paradoxes. To forget is to remember differently. To rule is to abandon names. To destroy the Sith is to become its silence. And at last you find the final place to dwell of the unnamed, hidden in a black comet, drifting beyond the outermost system, its core carved by hands that never had faces, only beliefs. You enter the well alone. It is not a chamber, it is a void shaped like an answer. You kneel, you open your palms. The Codex floats upward, leaving your body, hovering before you in stillness. And then it dissolves, not in light, not in flame. It simply ends. Its knowledge now lives in you, but no longer needs to burn. It has done what it was shaped to do, not to teach, not to warn, but to remember in the only way truth ever survives. Quietly, through the life of one who chooses not to control it, you rise. The well seals behind you. The comet continues its slow, endless drift, and you walk back into the galaxy, not as myth, not as message, but as presence. There will be no statue for you, no chronicle bearing your name, but in time, the war between shadow and flame will quiet, not because of victory, but because somewhere, someone will choose not to answer hatred with more fire, but with a question, a breath, a silence, and in that moment, they will become the Codex too. You walk onward, and behind you, the Force breathes differently.